Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Kathy McGrath, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. And today's issue of the Nipawin Banner and Press is for Friday, November 7th, 2025. And Halloween was just over, and here on the front, positively spooky. The town of Nipawin hosted a pet costume contest on October 29th. Seen here is Karen Kabakangan with her fluffy friend Chunky. And we also have a few more pictures. Let's see, the town of Nipawin hosted a pet costume contest at Riverbend Park on the evening of October 29th. Pictured here are some of the contest's entrants. Top left, pictured are the contestants from the Ponsac and Ferguson families, their pets dressed as a pumpkin, UPS delivery driver, and a superhero. On the left side of the photo are Isla, Abby, and Heather Ponsac with pup Winston, who is held. On the right side are Andrea and Ivy Ferguson with pups Daisy and Augie. And the top right, little Miss Lucy Ellman was part of a vibrant and adorable fall display. And on the far left, taking on agricultural approach, Jen Lougheed is pictured here as a farmer. She was accompanied by an adorable miniature cow, Hazel, and a very fluffy chicken, Archie. Left, this pup named Lacey McMuffin was a fairy for the evening. And a story that's very close to my heart, NACTV prepares for the 2025 AGM by Casper Warehan. As the big 2025 draws closer to its end, the time comes for organizations to review the year that was. Such is the case for Nipawin's own TV station, Nipawin Access Community Television, NACTV. NACTV will be holding an annual general meeting, AGM, at 7 p.m. on November 24th in the Nipawin Library. The meeting is open to all to attend. While the meeting provides an opportunity to adopt revised bylaws and to review and approve the 2024-25 financial statements, it also serves as greater purpose. The AGM is an opportunity for NACTV to report to the community and receive feedback from our friends and viewers, said General Manager Ken Waddell. He added, NACTV has been part of Nipawin for over 40 years, but many of our original volunteers have aged out or passed away. It's a great opportunity for people to get involved in a meaningful endeavor in their community. I hope that people will see the value of our local TV station. For those who may be unfamiliar with the television station, NACTV is a member of Community Access Television Users and Stations. The station's operational funds come from a combination of the Canadian Broadcast Rights Association, Canadian Journalism Collective, the Google Funds, local donations, the Beautiful Plains Community Foundation, the Town of Nipawin, Rural Municipality of Rosedale, and local businesses and organizations. NACTV's board is required to have between 3 and 8 members. The board currently meets once per month. More board members are currently being accepted. We have 5 board members, but not everyone is able to attend every meeting, Waddell noted. We are looking at meeting less often. Waddell noted that the best way to get involved as a board member is to attend meetings and put forward fundraising and programming ideas. Another major staple of NACTV is its dedicated volunteers. Volunteers aid in filming events, editing videos, and more. There is a huge opportunity to volunteer in videoing and editing, said Waddell. We are being asked to video more youth and high school hockey, and that requires a camera person, a switcher, and a play-by-play person, all volunteer positions. Delving further into the programming side of things, programming manager Leeway Cabrera noted that the station needs people who can aid in conceptualizing and creating programs. These can range from sports, talk shows, cooking shows, to hobby showcases, and more. So there are a lot of opportunities for those who would like to volunteer, and this could give them the platform to showcase their talents, culture, and share their perspectives on various topics, said Cabrera. With more programs that we create through our volunteers, the TV station has the potential to increase its viewership and also generate more income through the royalties we can get from Canadian Broadcasting Rights Agency. Cabrera added, "I hope that people will see the value of our local TV station and that people will step up to help in any way they can. It's been a rough few months with only 2 staff at the station, and we are still hoping that people can volunteer their time to help us out." Rain Pryor, production manager for NACTV, concurred, stating, "Fundamentally, without community support, we don't exist. Without volunteers, we can't cover nearly the amount of community activity that we would like to. We are a community station, and that means being both by and for the community. So we need volunteers in all areas, whether that's in front of the camera or behind it, helping with fundraising, sending us footage of community events, or anything else that might help." Outside of programming and editing, NACTV is also looking for an ad salesperson. Volunteers can get involved with NACTV at any time by reaching out to the station by phone 204-46-2639 or email nactv@wcgwave.ca. And we'll continue on now that I've gotten that out. Minnedosa Poppy Memorial returns. Minnedosa Poppy Memorial has returned to a place of prominence within the community. The 14-meter-long blanket was created back in 2020 with thousands of knitted and crocheted poppies made by local volunteers. The poppies are displayed at the War Memorial each year to honor veterans for Remembrance Day. And right in the center by Ken Waddell, Canada must consider war with great caution. This column harkens back to 2019, but it bears repeating. It's been a long time since the guns of World War I fell silent, 107 years ago, in fact. Some of us are old enough to have known some World War I veterans. Most of us know World War II veterans, but there are very few left with us. The Korean War was a much smaller conflict, and it was over 70 years ago. My brother was a Korean War vet, but he is gone now too. We have a number of military veterans with us who have served our country well in other places, in peacekeeping efforts, mostly in the Middle East. The irony of the opening sentence is that guns never have actually fallen silent. Diminished, yes, but silent, no. One has to wonder why we still have conflicts. There are many factors, and while military action is still seen as a solution today, it rarely is the answer. Canada's role as a military country has an interesting history. Our very nation was formed by war. The French colonists fighting the British in Canada's early days, the government fighting the First Nations people, and the Métis are all key points in Canadian history. Canada sent troops to the Boer War in the late 1800s. It is said Canada became a nation in World War I. By the time World War II came along, Canada became a major player in this thing called war. The 1950s saw the Korean conflict and heavy Canadian involvement. Canada tried to be a peacekeeper in the second half of the 20th century and on into the present day by either war or peacekeeping standards. Canada has been pretty successful. After experiencing 400 years of military involvement, Canada needs to take a serious look at what the future holds. Hopefully, the next 100 years will look very different from what the past 100 years has looked like. Hopefully, the results will be much different. Canada needs to take a serious look at what it can and should do. In spite of our great geographic size, Canada is still only a small percentage of the United States in population and economic capacity. That factor alone sets some boundaries about what we can and should do. Canada needs a strong and battle-ready military on land, sea, and in the air. We don't have that right now, especially in the air and on the sea. Canada needs to have training and equipment that allows us to partner with our allies at home and, when necessary, abroad. That word, abroad, raises some serious considerations. Our interventions abroad were instigated out of the necessity of the times. Past decisions were made based on the best information available. It is unfair to criticize past decisions. To do so is a disservice to those who risk their lives for our sake. But future decisions and interventions need to be examined in the light of the best information available and of what we have learned from the past. Canada needs to be ready at all times to defend our borders and come to the defense of our allies. That said, I'm not sure we should entangle ourselves in civil and religious wars in faraway places, and especially in places where the people have no intention of sharing our view about peace and good government. In the bluntest of terms, if we intervene in the countries that place little value on human rights or religious freedom, it is doubtful if we should send our people to die there. Canada is a relatively young country, but some of the places where we try to intervene have had a highly developed society for thousands of years. I doubt they are really prepared to take moral instruction or military intervention from us. Canada's military needs to be ready to defend, to work at home, be ready to align with allies when necessary, but intervention should be done in a very measured and considered manner. Canada's job is to build opportunity in Canada and defend Canada's interest. If other countries like our approach, they are quite welcome to adopt it. However, we should tread very carefully lest we think we can enforce our values in places where we are not welcome. And the disclaimer, the views expressed in this column are the writer's personal views and are not to be taken as being the view of the newspaper staff. And we move on to Home Buddies by Rita Friesen. Lest we forget. Hanging on a wall in many a community hall and prominently displayed in a church or, sadly, tucked into storage are the plaques and framed papers recording the names of those who have volunteered for the active service with Canada's fighting force for king and country. Last week, my sister was working at the Roland Community Hall, helping prepare for their fall supper, and she noted one such list. Looking closer, it was a list of people from the Myrtle District, and including the names Ellen Groening and Dave Thiessen with the Army, and Cornelius Thiessen with the Navy. Ellen was our mother's sister and married Cornelius, and Dave was Cornelius's brother, and he married our mother's younger sister, Liddy. These brave folks served well, returned, thankfully unharmed, and contributed to society for the rest of their days. My uncles and aunts seldom spoke of their time in service, continuing to live quiet, dignified lives, loving and being loved. As children, we never thought to ask questions, and I do wonder if their children heard stories. I am deeply grateful for their service and for the role they played in my life. I want to thank Mr. Ferguson for placing the white wooden crosses in their Riverside Cemetery. The red poppy in the center speaks volumes. There must be hundreds of them in almost every corner of the beautifully maintained resting place. Men and women, young and old, of every nationality, all willing to work for a common goal, a common good. I can imagine that some signed up out of financial necessity, a guaranteed income for the wife and children, in a time when jobs were scarce and hunger common. I imagine for some it was an adventure, travel, new friends, a test of their strength and courage. Others went in answer to the call of duty. In my early years, one of our neighbors served in and returned from World War I, and when his son enlisted for the Second World War, Mr. Key signed up again, not wanting his son to go off alone. The plaques and framed papers do tell a story. They remind us of family members who served. It's a full heart that reads these names, and then I think of all the nameless heroes. I can imagine wives bidding their partners farewell, knowing that the weight and responsibility of family life is now theirs alone. I can imagine sweethearts recognizing that with the parting they may never be a home and family or mother. The hopes and dreams of a safe and love-filled life for their child now so uncertain. Neighborhood friends growing up too fast, one left behind for any reason while chums enlist and leave. I can even imagine the gut-wrenching emotion when the dreaded telegram or envoy tells one clearly that their loved one will not be coming home. Would that be an easier message than missing in action? That I cannot imagine. As November 11th, Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, is honored, I am humbled in gratitude for all who served and all who waited. We will remember. And we move on to Faithfully Yours by Neil Stroshine. Setting realistic boundaries. In last week's column, I spoke of boundaries and the benefits they provide those who live within the limits they set. Today, I want to offer some guidelines to help us set realistic boundaries within which we can live happy and productive lives. They have served me well for most of my life, and I hope they will help you. Boundary 1. Set and maintain personal financial priorities. My parents grew up during the dirty 30s, years of drought combined with the Great Depression that devastated and destroyed the hopes and dreams of millions in Canada. They lived simply. They spent wisely, and despite the many hardships they face, they always had enough to feed their family and expand their farm, little by little, paying as they went. They also made sure that they had enough to make regular donations to our community church and to support selected Christian ministries, some of which were family members. I have never forgotten the lessons I learned from their example. Today, my priorities and spending habits closely mirror theirs, and I am grateful for the stability I enjoy thanks to the boundaries I set by following their example. Boundary 2. Protect the resources God has entrusted to your care. These resources come in two forms: people and possessions. As for the people in our lives, boundary lines need to be clearly stated. We will not tolerate any disrespect, mockery, ridicule, put down, bias, racism, or prejudice, not from us directed at others, and not from others directed at us or anyone in our care. We will accept rebuke or correction at any time, provided it is given in love and based on truth. But we will call out those who judge us based on lies and other assumptions. As for the possessions, we will treat them with respect, keep them in good repair, and use whatever means we must to protect them from those who would misuse or abuse them. There is nothing wrong with having insurance to protect you in case of accident, fire, theft, or other forms of loss. Nor is there anything wrong with keeping your doors locked, putting security systems in your homes or businesses, having adequate exterior lighting, or using other means to protect your resources from those who would use fraud, manipulation, extortion, or violence to take them from you. Finally, carefully choose the charities to which you will donate money. As we get close to Christmas, our mailboxes, social media, accounts, radios, and TVs will be flooded with messages from organizations asking for donations. They will be crafted to convince us that their causes are just and that everyone should send them some money. As of 2023, according to Statistics Canada, there were over 86,000 registered not-for-profit organizations in this country. They do good work. They meet real needs. And they all would like us to support them financially. But who should we support and how much should we give? That decision is between you and God. He will show you the organizations you should support and tell you how much to donate to each. Setting these boundaries is easy, but sometimes we must set boundaries that can split families in half and create wounds that may never heal. Next week, we will examine one story from ancient history where this happened, and we will learn how boundaries brought a man face to face with God in an encounter that changed his life, and if we will learn from it, can also change ours. And changing the subject completely, do the market report from Blaine, Houston. The market was steady to a tad higher than last week. We sold 1,631 head on Tuesday, November 4th. Here are some market highlights from yesterday's sale. 25 red and black exotic steers weighing 465 pounds bring $7.36 a pound, or $3,422 a head. 44 red and black steer calves coming in the ring weighing 594 pounds and cash in at $6.32 a pound, $3,754 per head. 28 red and black calves weighing 647 pounds stamped their ticket at $5.905 a pound, $3,820 a head. On the heifer side of things, 13 black exotic heifers weighing 473 pounds bring $6.33 per pound, $2,994 per head. 11 black heifers weigh 573 pounds and fetch $5.50 per pound, $3,151 per head. 5 red and black heifers weighing 674 pounds bring $4.90 a pound, $3,302 a head. Plainer type cattle are still seeing some discounts. As you can see, the market was steady to last week. And we have thumbs up and thumbs down. And we have a big thumbs up from David Honestchuk from Clonella. Thanks to a neighbor who helped me to the hospital, and to Dr. Desolé and staff of Nipawa, Dr. Gully and staff of Brandon, and Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Sidham of St. Boniface. Thanks to all the drivers that took me to Brandon and Winnipeg. Bravo! And solved picture mystery, perhaps not solved? The Dnipro Banner and Press has received a possible correction for the Bernie couple that was identified in the October 31st edition. Bill Dunsmore has contacted the Banner and Press to let us know that the elderly couple on page 14, identified as Annie and Charlie Hunt, may not in fact be Annie and Charles Hunt. Bill believes that they may in fact be a picture of his grandparents, Kristen and Anna Larson. They immigrated from Denmark along with their families in the fall of 1929 and passed through Pier 21 in Halifax. The building behind them is their home on a farm east of Burnie. Bill notes that he has further supporting evidence of their identity in the form of a picture of his parents' wedding party in front of the same building. And we have a letter to the editor. Former Councillor Paulin comments on resignation. There have been some questions raised as to why I resigned from the council of the RM of Minto Odana and then ran again for my own vacancy. In the interest of transparency and accountability, which I did the best to maintain during my 19 years on council, I will now submit to you, the reader, my version of events as I experienced them, from which you may draw your own conclusions. On the morning of Monday, the 11th of August, I was called by the Reeve and asked to attend an urgent meeting at the municipal office. Upon arrival, I was confronted by the Reeve, CAO, and the 3-member Personnel Committee. After taking my seat, the Reeve informed me that a very serious complaint under the Municipal Code of Conduct bylaw had been submitted against me on the previous Friday. I was presented with a copy of the 12-page bylaw, which I had very little knowledge of. When I asked who had submitted the complaint, I was told that they didn't have to tell me. I then asked to see the complaint and was told that they didn't have to show it to me. The CAO stated that no one had ever dealt with the code before, so this was all new. Without the ability to read the complaint or defend myself, I was then told that I was considered to be in violation of the code and would be sanctioned as follows. Removal as finance chairman after 3 years and barred from entering the office except on council days. Furthermore, if I had any business to conduct at the office, it would have to be done in the parking lot. One of the members of the Personnel Committee took it upon himself to make a few unprofessional and disrespectful remarks, at which point I walked out of the meeting. All of this was done in flagrant disregard of the same code that I was accused of violating. Everyone in the room had arrived early to discuss strategy and therefore had reviewed the alleged complaint that was withheld from me. This was unethical in my view, since I should have been shown the complaint first, as provided by the code. 3 days later, on the 14th, I arrived at the regular council meeting, fully prepared to resign after the intimidation and disrespect that had been shown to me on Monday by people that had known me for decades. The meeting went in camera at this point, and I can't comment on what happened after that, than to say I was left with no confidence in the CAO's ability to follow the code properly. With an unblemished record, I refused to be treated in such a disdainful manner after many years of faithful service to the taxpayers, so I handed in my resignation in protest and left the meeting. In the days and weeks that followed, certain material facts were brought to my attention that caused me to have second thoughts about resigning. In due course, I had discussions with a good many ratepayers, members of other councils, the AMM, a complaint investigator, the Municipal Affairs Department, and the Office of the Ombudsman, among several others, all of whom were shocked by the proceedings. I was able to comb through the bylaw and receive coherent interpretations of the procedure that should have been followed. Obviously, the consensus was yes, I had a right to see the complaint on the 11th. Furthermore, if I wanted to have this matter reopened and investigated properly, then I would have to return to the council table. Therefore, I submitted nomination papers accordingly. Had I been treated with any degree of fairness and decency and had been shown the completed copy of the complaint on August 11th when I asked for it, then I would never have resigned and the election would not have been necessary. Submitted by Brian Poland of Clan William. And another letter to the editor. Budget 2025 continues to balloon spending and debt. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is criticizing Prime Minister Mark Carney for ballooning spending and debt in Budget 2025. Budget 2025 shows the debt continues to spiral out of control because spending continues to spiral out of control, said Franco Terrazzano, CTF Federal Director. Carney needs to reverse course to get debt and spending under control, because every dollar Canadians pay in federal sales tax is already going to pay interest charges on the debt. Carney isn't close to balancing anything when he's borrowing tens of billions of dollars every year. The federal deficit will increase significantly this year to $78.3 billion. There is no plan to balance the budget and stop borrowing money. The federal debt will reach $1.35 trillion by the end of this year. Debt interest charges will cost taxpayers $55.6 billion this year, which is more than the federal government will send to the provinces in health transfers, $54.7 billion, or collect through the GST, $54.4 billion. Budget 2025 increases spending by $38 billion this year to $581 billion. Despite promises to control spending in future years, Budget 2025 projects that overall spending will continue to rise by billions every year. Canadians don't need another plan to create a plan to meet about cutting spending. Canadians need real spending cuts now, Terrazzano said. The government always tells Canadians that it will be on a diet Monday, but Monday never comes. And the government isn't really finding savings if it's planning to keep increasing spending every year. Budget 2025 commits to strengthening the industrial carbon tax and sending a multi-decade industrial carbon price trajectory that targets net zero by 2050. Carney's hidden carbon tax will take it harder for Canadian businesses to compete and will push Canadian entrepreneurs to set up shop south of the border, Terrazzano said. Carney should scrap all carbon taxes, cut spending, and stop taking so much money from taxpayers. Submitted by Franco Terrazzano, Canadian Taxpayers Federation Federal Director. And we'll go back here. And here we have Out of Helen's Kitchen, local food. Across Canada, more people are embracing the local food movement. This growing trend is driven by concerns about food quality, food safety, and the environment. Not many years ago, most of us ate whatever we or our neighbor grew. Now we can't live without mangoes, avocados, and fresh pineapple, which comes from far away. Why eat local? Eating local shortens the distance between the farm and the table. This reduces the environmental impact of long-distance transportation of foods, commonly known as food miles. Long-distance food quite often requires added chemicals to keep it fresh for its long journey. As well, long-distance produce is often picked, not fully ripened, and never tastes quite as good after ripening. Locally grown produce travels shorter distances, meaning it's fresher when it reaches your plate. Fruits and vegetables harvested at peak ripeness retain more nutrients. The farmers' markets are a great place to buy fresh produce and other Manitoba-produced foods. By buying local Manitoban products, your hard-earned dollars stay in our Manitoba province and can strengthen Manitoba's local economy and not some giant corporation's food account. How you choose to spend your food money is powerful. Examples of Manitoba-grown foods available at most our local grocery stores: Bothwell cheese from Bothwell, featuring flavored and spicy hard cheeses. Prairie Flour Mills from Eli, with all-purpose and specialty flours. Loveday mushrooms from Oakbank, with white button, cremini, portobello, and some exotic mushroom varieties. Pioneer Meat Altona, with their famous smoked farmer sausage. Nailway Foods in Winnipeg, the second largest processor of pierogies and panzerottis in Canada. Vermilion Growers, Dauphin, who grow fresh tomatoes year-round. Peek at the Market, vegetable growers with over 100 different types of vegetables. Manitoba Harvest Hemp Foods, Winnipeg with their healthy hemp heart products. Avion Harvest, Nipawin with quality grain and pulse products, and so many more. Much the eggs, milk, poultry, wild rice, potatoes, honey, beef, pork, canola oil, and oatmeal available at our grocery stores comes from Manitoba farmers. And she has recipes for raspberry lentil bars, lemon and sage pork schnitzel, and old-fashioned honey cookies. And here's some more Halloween pictures here. Trick-or-treaters parade through Nipawin. Nipawin had a band of early-day trick-or-treaters on Friday, October 31st. On that day, a preschool costume parade was held. The parade took the young students throughout the town of Nipawin, making stops at many businesses and organizations to show off their costumes. At each location, the students were also treated to Halloween sweets. One of the many stops along the parade route was Arts Forward. Seen here are some of the many youths that participated, and some of those costumes are really, really cute. So we keep moving on. to Your Listening Ear by Dulcie Martin. Backstage Heroes, the unsung makers of community theatre. Have you had the chance to explore the incredible world of theatre? No, don't stop reading this article thinking there is no place for you. Keep reading, because in this world, everyone is accepted for the talents they have, and there will always be a place for you. I first got into the theatre world when I was in elementary school, struggling with my parents' divorce, my own mental health, and the ever-dramatic world of youth. I found myself surrounded by a welcoming presence in the theatre. I can honestly say that it saved me from a rough life that I could have chosen for myself but did not. I want you to be able to have that experience too. There are many roles in the theatre world that don't involve acting. Theatre is like a mini society where everyone's strengths have to come together to make the larger production. Let's showcase a few. Backstage crew. These guys are the pinnacle of the order and the backbone of the production. They keep the production running on time, cue the lights, manage chaos, and just keeps things flowing like a well-oiled machine. Without backstage crew, the entire show implodes. If you are a person who likes to be behind the scenes, are organized and creative, this is a great place for you. Set designers. They create magic from wood. They literally build worlds from wood and paint. It's incredible. Set designers are essential from building the physical sets, to finding props, to making sure the world on stage reflects the play itself. If you are a handy person and or a creative person, this is the place for you. Set designers work as a team with everyone's strengths contributing in a unique way. Costume designers. They bring the story to life through fabric and texture. Do you fancy yourself a master thrifter and an amazing sewer? Do you have an eye for fashion? This is where you are needed. Sounds crew. They make the world on stage breathe. They take a group of people talking on stage and turn it into a whole universe. Do you see yourself as a techie person? Someone who loves music? Want to have a hand in a production but don't want to be crew members? These are the ninjas in black clothes who move set pieces, manage props, and solve problems silently in the dark. They embody teamwork and precision, invisible but essential. Front of house. Ushers, ticket takers, concessions, volunteers. They're the first smile and the last goodbye for the audience. They create the atmosphere of welcome and belonging that defines community theatre. The Beautiful Plains Community Theatre Group in Neepawa will be doing a production of Sister Act, and we want you. If you love to act, auditions are November 7th, 6:30 to 9:30 p.m., November 8th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and November 9th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Arts Forward. If acting isn't your thing, we'll still want you. Reach out to Amanda at 204-212-2560 or by email at bpcommunitytheatre@gmail.com. This is going to be fun and fantastic production, and you can contribute in any way that you would like to. And we've moved on to sports. The NAC Tigers hosts annual Slashers Showdown. It was another successful year for the Neepawa Tigers Slashers Showdown hockey tournament. 6 teams took part in this year's edition. As for on the ice, the Tigers won all the round-robin games and the semifinal before being bested in the championship by Collegian Sauvé Olympians by Owen Devereaux. Neepawa's Halloween hockey tradition was back in a big way last weekend with the return of the annual Slashers Showcase. This year's tournament was held on October 31st and November 1st at the Yellowhead Center and featured 6 teams, including our own NACI Tigers, who served as host club. The first game for the Tigers was versus a very respectable WHSHL opponent, the Crocus Plainsmen. This tournament opener turned into a slow build with both teams going goalless through the first 40 minutes of play. For the third period, Crocus Plains scored the first goal of the game off a power play chance. Less than a minute after that initial goal, Neepawa replied back as Ian Foster collected his first of the weekend. Near the midpoint of the period, Carter Cookshanks put away a chance that would end up being the game winner, making it 2-1 for Neepawa. Jace Arrows picked up the victory in net for the Tigers. Neepawa 2-0 PCI. Neepawa's next game was again a less familiar opponent, the Portage Collegiate Institute Trojans. After a scoreless first period, Zach Plett scored the first of the game with only 1 second left in the second. Plett took advantage of an unexpected chance while the Tigers were on the penalty kill. For the third, PCI kept on pressing to find the equalizer, but goaltender Harley Smith-Belisle was solid between the pipes. This game would be secured late when Neepawa's Ian Foster put a shot away and sent the Tigers into the playoff round with a perfect 2-0 record. And the championship consolation games. For the semifinal, Neepawa was paired up against the W.C. Miller Aces. While the Aces put in a solid effort, the speed and talent of our hometown team just proved to be too much as the Tigers earned themselves a 3-1 victory. Jude Carr scored the first of the game for NACI in the opening period, while Kane Lapointe picked up a pair in the middle frame to give the Tigers the 3-0 advantage. W.C. Miller did score one late in the game, but that was simply not enough as Neepawa prevailed and moved on to the championship game. For the final, Neepawa played the Collège Saint-Jean-Sauvé Olympians. While Neepawa was able to keep pace for well over half the game, Jean Sauvé scored a pair in the second and were able to hold on from there for the 2-0 win. Tigers co-coach Troy Brister said this early season tournament is a great way for the team to work on things before the WHSHL season really gets busy. As well, Troy noted that it's always nice to play teams that are not in your league. Playing in the finals against a top 3 team from Winnipeg High School League was a great opportunity for us. We held our own in the final in what we thought was a fast-paced game. The Neepawa Tigers would also like to thank all those people that were able to quickly get the Zamboni fixed partway through the tournament on Friday, October 31st. Those include TIC Parts and Services, Chris Kolbacki, Chuck Tarrant, and the Yellowhead staff of maintenance manager Tom Lissaway and staff member Mo Tarek. And a pair of Neepawa Tigers win RMFL year-end awards. The outstanding on-field efforts of Kane Lapointe and Lexlin Amoret have been honored by the Rural Manitoba Football League by Owen Devereaux. The Neepawa Tigers' turnaround season in the Rural Manitoba Football League is getting the recognition it rightfully deserves. The RMFL has announced the nominees for its year-end awards, and a pair of the Tigers have collected league-wide honors. Kane Lapointe has won the league's most outstanding defensive player, while Lexlin Amiet has singled out as the Rookie of the Year. Lapointe earned the accolade with his impressive season stats, which included 91 tackles, 4 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and a quarterback sack. Amiot, meanwhile, was also a defensive standout with 36 tackles and 6 interceptions. He was also an important part of the special team, with 136 accumulated kick return yards and 1 touchdown. This is the first time the Neepawa Tigers have multiple award winners in a single season since 2012. Other Tigers who received league award nominations this year include Most Outstanding Player, Offensive, E.J. Clark, Most Outstanding Player, Special Teams, Keegan Dyke, Most Outstanding Player, Defensive Line, Dylan Fleury, Most Outstanding Player, Defensive Line, Charlie Mignot, Norris Aiken Memorial Award nominee, Daxton Brock, Parter Guy Memorial Award nominee, Jesse Whitlaw. With the exception of the Rookie of the Year award, all reward nominees and winners also earn an RMFL All-Star selection. Neepawa Tiger head coach Lucas Clark commended not only Lapointe and Amoyet, but the entire roster for their contributions to this season's success. Kane has been the undisputed leader of the defense and will be missed as he graduates, but with outstanding players coming through, such as Lexan Amiet, Charlie Mignot, Bill Hulley, Seth Minkus, and Calix Sapoko, among others, we're primed to continue carrying forward the intensity and leadership that Kane provided, noted Clark. As for the other award nominees, Clark said it's great to see that the players' efforts have been noticed by other teams throughout the league. We're very proud and honored to have 2 Tigers win their respective awards, although, in our opinion, it could have been more, said Clark. I even had separate team coach reach out to me directly and compliment us on how quickly we were able to turn the team around, and that he can cast his vote for all of our nominations, including our coaching staff. And continuing in sports, rest, roster moves, and resilience. Titans finding their groove with recent winning streak, and pictured at the top, the Neepawa Titans have muscled their way into 4th place, nearly doubling their points to 13 with a 6-7-0-1 record. And at the bottom, the next home game for the Titans takes place on November 8th as the Selkirk Steelers come to town to take on the Titans. The Titans will be in Virden on November 7th as they take on Virden Oil Capitals, and in Winnipeg November 11th against the Monarchs. The Titans' penalty kill was in top form over the week as they managed to kill off 11 penalties. After a sluggish start to the Manitoba Junior Hockey League season, the Neepawa Titans have found their stride, winning 3 straight and vaulting out of the basement of the West Division. During the October 31st edition of the Neepawa Banner, the Titans had a 3-7-0-1 record and were at the bottom of the MGEU West Division with 7 points. Now the Titans have muscled their way into 4th place, nearly doubling their points to 13 with a 6-7-0-1 record. Currently, the Titans are 2 points back of the Wasikapa Wolverines and have played 3 fewer games than them. Part of the success of the squad has faced is because the Titans had a week off from play in the MJHL, with which head coach GM Ken Pearson and the team seized the opportunity to reinvent their game. I think that the week off allowed us to make some small changes to our group on and off the ice, he said. We had some good team builder sessions throughout our downtime. Tweaking the roster. The Titans also spent the stretch updating their roster with the addition of Talon Lewis, who played with the teams in 24-25 and starting the season with the Weyburn Red Wings of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League before being traded to Neepawa. The Titans also brought in 6'5" Virginia-Minnesota defender Easton Walters to help with their backhand. These additions also complement the recent addition of Tyler Wombold, who was brought in to help score. I think they all bring something different that we are lacking, said Pearson. Obviously, with Lewis's returning, we knew that he would bring us right away. The play of Wombold and Walters through those first 3 games has given us more depth and some sandpaper on the lineup, which is maybe we were lacking. Pearson has been proud of the team's efforts in their last stretch and talked about what has stood out for the team. I think our commitment to defense as a whole has really stood out. Our forwards are working smarter, making it less difficult on our defensemen, which in turn makes it less difficult for our goalies, he said. One of the big questions coming into the season was who would step up and be the primary scorer for the club this season. So far, that title has been claimed by Talon Wallace, 13 points, 6 goals, 7 assists. Players also in the hunt include Logan Paquette, 12 points, 6 goals, 6 assists, Tyler Weisgarber, 3 goals, 7 assists, and Jack Clark, boasting 9 points, 5 goals, 4 assists. The Titans have also had a stellar penalty kill, stopping 11-11 while down a man in their last 3 games, and has also showed flashes on the power play, going 4 for 10. The next home game for the Titans takes place on November 8th as the Selkirk Steelers come to town to take on the Titans. Then the team will be in Virden on November 7th as they take on Virden Oil Capitals, and then play a Remembrance Day matinee in Winnipeg against the Monarchs. And net gain. Burley earns MJHL Star of the Week. Titans goaltender Zach Burley is pictured by Joshua Jackson. After the Neepawa Titans had a perfect week of league play, goaltender Zach Burley was rewarded by being named one of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League Stars of the Week. In total, Burley racked up 3 wins, maintained a 1.0 goals against average, and boasted a 0.967 save percentage. The goaltender, whom the Titans acquired in the off-season, had nearly a perfect week, turning aside 87 of 90 shots over a 3-game span. The icing on the cake for Burley was the stealing of the spotlight in a revenge game, making multiple highlight reel saves against his former club, the Steinbach Pistons, blanking them 4-0. Other MJHL Star of the Week candidates for the week 7 of the season included Dauphin Kings forward Ethan Stewart, who in 3 games tallied 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists. Niverville Nighthawks forward Adam Vigfuson helped his team out with 4 assists for a total of 5 points in 3 games. And 2 Titans gear up for Western All-Star Challenge by Joshua Jackson. 2 Neepawa Titans were hoping to make an impression among the 40 of the top 19 under prospects from the MJHL and SJHL, as they represented the MJHL at the Western All-Star Challenge in Martinsville, Saskatchewan. Tyler Wombold and Jack Clark took part in the 3-day tournament for the U19 athletes, which pitted the top prospects from the MJHL and SJHL against each other. The challenge served as a pre-selection camp for Team Canada West for the upcoming World Junior A Challenge being held in December in Trois-Rivières, Quebec. 20 players from each league participated in on-ice sessions and gameplay during the event in front of Team Canada West staff and scouts from higher levels of hockey. Titans head coach and general manager Ken Pearson said it was great to see his players in action. I think it's great for those two and a great recognition for our organization as to the type of players that we can attract to Neepawa, he said. Our scouting staff, led by Craig Anderson and Chris Menard, deserve full credit for these two players as they were both our first-round picks in back-to-back MJHL drafts. The event provided players from each league with an opportunity to showcase themselves in front of many scouts while trying to earn a roster spot on Team Canada West. The tournament wrapped up as the Neepawa Banner and Press was going to print. Results and reaction will be featured in next week's edition. And another Beautiful Plains Community Theatre to perform Sister Act in 2026. It's official. Community theatre is returning to Neepawa after a well-attended information meeting and the formation of a board to guide the project. The Beautiful Plains Community Theatre will be presenting Sister Act in spring 2026. Based on the hit 1992 movie, the feel-good musical comedy smash is filled with powerful gospel music, outrageous dancing, and a truly moving story. It is a sparkling tribute to the universal power of friendship. Auditions for the roles in the cast take place for the weekend of November 7th to 9th. Check out our Facebook page for more information or call the number below. Roles range from strong leads to smaller parts in the chorus. There is a place for everyone interested in being on stage. Other important pieces of the musical machinery include pit orchestra, sight, light, backstage crew, set design, construction, painting, costume team, makeup, hair team, publicity, ticket sales, house management. Musical theater is truly an endeavor that brings together so many abilities and talents to arrive at a final product. You don't have to be singing on stage to be an integral part of this experience. Anyone who has not already expressed interest in this production can still get involved by contacting Blair at 204-476-2359 or on his cell at 204-841-4579. And NACI Hope Group is celebrating another very successful Halloween food drive. On October 31st, members of the Hope Group collected donations from homes across Neepawa, which were then taken to our local Salvation Army food bank. For this year's campaign, your support helped bring in approximately 3,700 pounds of food, along with monetary donations. Well done. And we're going to go back to the past now with Looking Back by Casper Warehan. 125 years ago, 1900, boys with air guns are doing considerable damage by breaking windows in town, and one in particular at F. Leach's jewelry store. The names of these youngsters are known, and their parents may be called on to pay for the damage. Better take the guns from the kids. 100 years ago, 1925. Reconstruction of the telephone and electric light poles is an interesting observation. It is easier to put up a pole than to take one down, but with a staff working systematically, there is little danger in either operation. November 6, Kelwood. Owing to a few new cases of scarlet fever developing this week among the school children, Dr. Dix has ordered the school closed again from November 5th until November 16th. The cases so far have been mostly a mild type. November 6, Eden. Death has called another pioneer of Eastern Eden District in the person of John Code, a man who did his duty all the way through his life. He came here in 1890 with his wife and family of 2 sons and 3 daughters, and this has been their continuous home. The deceased was born in Huron County, Ontario on November 1st, 1843, so that he had just passed his 53rd birthday. 75 years ago, for the 3rd successive academic year, the Evelyn McKay Bursary has been awarded. Marjorie Adele Lawson, 4th-year art student at United College in Winnipeg. Miss Lawson is studying theology in preparation for the ministry of the United Church of Canada. She is the daughter of Mrs. H. Lawson of Neepawa. Miss Lawson received her collegiate education here. An attempt to patch up and make temporary improvements to present fire equipment housing and, if possible, to find additional heated accommodation is under consideration of Council, reading the taking of another vote on the fire hall and disposal plant money bylaw. The death of William James Hamilton, 90, on October 26, marks the passing of another pioneer of Neepawa District. Born in Milvertown, Ontario on June 16, 1890, he came to Manitoba there must be a mistake here because he came to Canada in 1879. He homesteaded on the land about 10 miles south of Neepawa until 1882, when he moved into town. In 1885, he served in the Riel Rebellion. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas H. Pilgrim, residents of Neepawa since 1913, marked their 64th wedding anniversary on November 2nd at their home here. John Hanna of Winnipeg, the father of Mrs. A.E. Martin of Neepawa, celebrated his 101st birthday on Wednesday, October 25th. Mr. Hanna, on his birthday, voted at Mulvey School in Winnipeg in the city elections. 50 years ago, 1975, Neepawa Lumber transferred to a new owner, and pictured here is John Antonick, who became the new owner of Neepawa Lumber and Supply Limited on November 1st, 1975. Preliminary planning for the 1976 Manitoba Summer Games hit either a small snag or a major obstacle at a meeting Thursday evening when the cost of building a swimming pool for the Games was revealed. The estimated cost to construct the pool and the change room facilities was originally estimated, and unless a more reasonable alternative price can be found, the decision may have to be made to abandon the pool. Note, the Games were being planned to be held in Neepawa. All school-aged children in every school division in the province will have to be integrated into a regular classroom, regardless of either physical or mental handicap, according to provisions of Bill 58, a provincial education bill passed last spring. Neepawa Lumber and Supply Limited acquired a new proprietor and a new name over the weekend when the business was transferred by its founder, William Tinkler, to John Antonick on Saturday, November 1st. The firm will henceforth be known as Chimo Building Centre. Mr. Antonick comes to Neepawa from Altona, Manitoba, where he spent the past 2 years in partnership at a Chimo Building Centre there. He has more than 11 years' experience in the building supply trade. 20 years ago, 2005, 2 Neepawa junior students received automatic 60-day suspensions after they were caught in possession of illegal drugs. An elderly Neepawa woman was transported to Neepawa Hospital, where she was treated and released after being struck by a bicyclist in front of the county courthouse building on Hamilton Street last Monday. Under town bylaw, it is illegal to ride bicycles on sidewalks. Support workers at Turtle River School Division walked off the job Friday after talks between the division and the Canadian Union of Public Employees, CUPE, broke down. Doug McLaughlin of CUPE said the division's 100 support workers, bus drivers, school secretaries, teacher assistants, library clerks, custodial staff, and mechanics have been without a major contract since the beginning of the year. Minnedosa has been selected to provide a new $340,000 arthroscopic surgery program in the Assiniboine Regional Health Authority. And there's a disclaimer that the information gathered and used in each week and looking back features directly taken from the original print copy of the Neepawa Press and Neepawa Banner papers. Any errors or omissions from their stories, factual or otherwise, are the result of the original in print and not the responsibility of the archivist for the current vision of the Neepawa Banner and Press, which probably explains why the man came to Manitoba before he was born. And let's see. Special ad, the bad ad from November 6, 2005 edition of the Neepawa Banner and Press was placed by Sunny Mountain Furniture, especially in custom-built kitchens, vanities, china cabinets, bedroom suites, entertainment units, computer desks, and lots more. And notice, I was very fortunate to be a very curious youngster, wondering how the eye worked, how a lens worked, and how the eye doctor got those numbers. And even more fortunate to have the pleasure of helping so many of you with your vision and eye health. Now I have the pleasure of announcing Dr. Kara Vanderheyden and Dr. Megan Brunen will be taking over your care starting November 18th, 2025. A big thank you to each of you from Dr. Gerald Murray, the optometrist. And finally, to repeat the Story on the front page, the NACTV Annual General Meeting, November 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Neepawa Library. And highlights of the week, What's the Big Idea? Displays and Pitching Parlor, November 10th, 12:15, November 13th, 3:30, and November 15th at 10:30 a.m. And once more, the Westman Youth Choir, November 13th at 8 p.m. And we have some stories of the history compiled by Casper Warehan that tell about people who fought for us. Some survived, some didn't. I'll start with a message from our MLA, Jody Byram. Words of remembrance. Each year on November 11th, we pause to honor the courage and sacrifice of the men and women who served and continue to serve our country in times of war, conflict, and peacekeeping. Remembrance Day is more than a moment of silence. It is a time to reflect on the tremendous cost of freedom and the enduring legacy of those who gave their lives so that future generations could live in peace. Their bravery, resilience, and devotion to duty remind us of the best of who we are as Canadians. We also pay tribute to the families who have borne the weight of loss and separation, and to the veterans who returned home carrying memories and wounds, both seen and unseen. Their stories of service and sacrifice must continue to be told and remembered. As we gather at cenotaphs and memorials across our communities, let us recommit ourselves to the values our veterans defended: freedom, democracy, and compassion for others. Let us teach our children why we wear the poppy, not as a symbol of war, but as a promise to remember. On this Remembrance Day, may we honor the past, support our veterans in the present, and work towards a peaceful future worthy of their sacrifice, lest we forget. And we start with a distinguished career. Former Neepawa resident Ambrose Shearer decorated 13 times. And pictured on the right is Ambrose Shearer, formerly from Neepawa. He would retire from the Royal Air Force as an Air Vice Marshal. And the top photo is Ambrose and his father, William Thomas Shearer, and Ambrose Wright with his brother, William Charles Shearer. Note, the following article was written and information sourced from the Neepawa Banner and Press Archives, the Manitoba Historical Society, and the Beautiful Plains Archives. Ambrose Bernice Bunn Shearer is a man holding many distinctions, both military and civilian. He was a veteran of 2 world wars, receiving 13 decorations, became Manitoba's first Air Vice Marshal, and more. Honors received by Ambrose Shearer for his wartime services include the Croix de Guerre with Palm, the Silver Medal for Valor, and the Italian War Cross. The Neepawa Banner and Press is honored to share a portion of his story in this remembrance. Born in Lindsay, Ontario on May 8, 1893, to parents William Thomas Shearer and Emmeline Bechtel, he came to Neepawa with his family at an early age. While a specific date for Ambrose Shearer's moving to our rural community was not available, he and his family were residents here for many years. While in Neepawa, he attended school locally before apprenticing at a garage mechanic in town. Ambrose Shearer also studied at the University of Manitoba. At the onset of World War I, Shearer was one of the first airmen to leave from Winnipeg and move on to Toronto, Ontario, enlisting as a pilot. During his training, he set a 4.5-hour flying record and earned his license in just 320 minutes. This time frame was faster than most of his peers, with the average time for earning a license having been 400 minutes. Shearer was sent overseas in 1915 with the Royal Navy Air Service, taking flight for bombing missions over eastern and central Germany. Receiving wounds in January of 1917, he returned to Canada for a stint of recovery before once again going overseas to England. After a few months, Shearer was sent to Taranto, Italy for flying operations from the local base. After a time, he was dispatched to Valona, Albania, commanding the only Royal Air Force, RAF, squadron located in that country. Specifically, he was commanding officer of RAF number 224 Squadron, a fighter bomber unit. On October 24, 1917, the unit had a bombing run following an attack on an Austrian troop vessel in the Adriatic Sea. This was their 13th sortie against the nearby Austrian base. During the operation, his Camel airplane was hit by anti-aircraft fire, resulting in the breaking of Shearer's right leg and the severing of an artery. Navigating his craft with one leg and being in shock, Shearer safely returned to Italy. He received treatment for his wounds at the Italian Naval Hospital in Verona. The 1918 armistice was signed while he was still in recovery. Shearer returned to Canada in 1919, but joined up for service with the British Expeditionary Force just 3 months after. The purpose of his service at this time was to aid the White Russians against the Bolsheviks. Much of his time during this period was spent operating from aircraft carrier His Majesty's ship, HMS Pegasus, before later spending his remaining overseas service in England. Following his return to Canada in 1920, he married fellow Nipawin citizen Florence Elizabeth Young, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. R.D. Young, and obtained a commission in the newly formed Royal Canadian Air Force, RCAF. He was appointed squadron leader and was commanding officer at Camp Borden, Ontario in 1925. Headed to Jericho Beach Station in 1932, was commanding officer of the Ottawa Air Station in 1936, and in 1938 was appointed Director of Works and Buildings of the RCAF, responsible for the production of designs largely followed in the direction of Air Force schools and from coast to coast. Note, between these times periods, Shearer also made a return to England in 1928 and was stationed with the Royal Navy at the appointed Air Liaison Officer, following staff courses at the Air Naval College in Greenwich. He spent time aboard battleships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, and flew the R-100 and R-101 airships. Designed to serve for transatlantic transport, he selected the site for an airship mooring mast at Saint-Hubert Airport near Montreal, Quebec. He held the rank of wing commander when he resumed his duties in Canada in 1932. Shearer is also credited with being officer commanding for No. 2 Training Command, with headquarters at Winnipeg, and playing an important and active role in the development of the British Air Training Plan. This appears to have begun in 1940. According to available information, Shearer directed and organized the establishment of more than 30 air schools in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and northwestern Ontario. According to available reports, Air Vice Marshal Shearer was esteemed by his colleagues as one of the best pilots in Canada. In 1943, Shearer was appointed to the position of Director General of Economy and held that position until his retirement. Shearer moved to Vancouver, British Columbia in 1945. Shearer passed away on September 5, 1952. In addition to Florence, he was survived by 2 sons, Desmond and David, and his daughter, Elizabeth. Nipawin man served with Medical Corps. The late Alexander Fleming Dick Mackenzie of Nipawin was a dental technician, an associate editor of the Nipawin Press, had written 2 history books, Nipawin Land of Plenty in 1958 and The Lansdowne Story, 1967, was an honorary life member of the Manitoba Provincial 10-Pin Bowling Association, Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame in 1969, and more. He also served in World War I. The Manitoba Historical Society notes that he enlisted with the Canadian Medical Corps in 1916. His oath was sworn at Camp Hughes on October 3rd that year. He served in France and Belgium with the 5th Field Ambulance Corps and was later associated with the No. 6 Mobile Dental Corps. At the end of World War I, he went to Germany with the Army of Occupation. Mackenzie received his discharge in 1919, returning to Nipawin, where he began to work as a dental technician with George Harvey MacDonald and later Paul Cleave at a later date. The Government of Canada also notes that he had prior military experience with the 8th Canadian Infantry Battalion at Valcartier. And remembering James H. Dalton. Pictured right, the late James Howard Dalton, who served in World War I, and pictured above, a photo taken at Camp Sewell, huge, in 1915. James Jim Dalton can be seen in the top row, 4th from the left. As well, Ernie Dalton is seated 2nd from the bottom. James Howard Dalton lived in 2 area communities during his lifetime, Neepawa and Bertel. He first resided in Neepawa and later went to live in Bertel after serving with the Canadian Army in World War I. James was born here in Neepawa to parents Albert and Alice Dalton on May 7, 1891. He received his education in Neepawa and was then employed by the hardware business. Later, on September 17, 1915, James Dalton responded to the call of duty and enlisted for service. He enlisted via Sewell Hughes and joined the Canadian Expeditionary Force. Dalton was stationed with the 46th Battalion and saw service overseas. He also participated in the battalion's band, playing the baritone. Dalton's overseas service brought him to Europe, being active from 1915 to 1919. While there, he was a stretcher bearer and played in the aforementioned band. Throughout the war, Dalton kept diaries which detailed some of his duties and showed that he was many of the main World War I battlegrounds. These included locations such as Ypres and Vimy. There are many notes that stated what battalion groups the 46th Battalion Band performed for. Included below in quoted text are some of the entries that could be deciphered. August 11th, 1916, arrived at France, stayed at redacted all day and left about 11 p.m. August 13th, 1916, arrived at redacted about 5 a.m., billeted in barn. August 15th, 1960, lots of airplanes fired on, 4 men wounded. August 17th, 1916, weather fine, fixing up at headquarters. August 20th, 1916, heavy shell fire at Ypres, evening, night. August 23rd, 46th Battalion cut up 90 wounded and 20 killed in trenches. August 29th, heavy artillery firing, Vimy. November 10th, 1916, Regina Trench taken, prisoners taken, brigade moved on. September 3rd, 1918, several balloons brought down in the last 3 days. Shell fire very bad. Slept in blank field. Heavy shells dropped in lines. Several men killed and wounded. Narrow escape for band boys. Lots of horses killed. Major unknown wounded. September 22nd to 25th, 1918. Living in trenches near redacted. Waiting for offensive to start. Good weather, little rain. Dalton returned home to Neepawa shortly after the conclusion of the war, going back into the hardware business. He moved to Bertel in 1920 and managed a hardware store there for some time. Dalton was married to Laura Kilpatrick, who was also formerly from Neepawa. Dalton passed away October 2nd, 1967, and received his burial at the Bertel Cemetery. Area man wounded at Passchendaele. E.A. Howe serves overseas in World War I, passes due to combat injuries, and pictured a photo of Edward Howe, his Bible, and the letter sent to his mother and Edith after his death. With materials courteously provided by the Beautiful Plains Museum, the Neepawa Banner and Press is honored to share some details on Edward Alexander Howe. Edwards was born in Neepawa on April 8, 1896, to parents John and Margaret Porteous Howe. At the age of 20, he registered for service during World War I via Neepawa on March 8, 1916. At the time of his enlistment, he was stationed with the 226th Battalion and was then transferred to the 16th Canadian Scottish Battalion before being sent overseas. He went to France in April of 1917 before sustaining injuries at Passchendaele on November 8th. Edward subsequently passed from his wounds later that same day. At the time of his death, he was precisely 21 years and 7 months old. His burial took place at the Lugenhoek Military Cemetery in Belgium, near Poppering, grave X22AA8. He is reported that Edward had many friends in his life and was regarded to have had a bright and cheerful disposition. Following his death, a letter was sent to his mother, Margaret, and forwarded to another individual by the name of Edith after Margaret made her own edition. This letter has been retyped below to the best of the Banner and Press's ability in quoted text, as the original appeared. Some words could not be made out and have been thus indicated by a straight line in brackets. Number 3 Canadian CC Station, BEF, France, November 10th, 1917. To Mrs. John Howe, Neepawa, Manitoba, Canada. Dear Mrs. Howe, it is my sad duty to inform you of the death of this station of your son, Private P.A. Howe, 1000891, 16th Canadian Battalion, on November 8, 1917, at 8:30 p.m. He was admitted on the same day in the afternoon, wounded in the abdomen. I saw him and had worship with him. His end was peaceful, and I can assure you that everything possible was done for his comfort. He is buried in the Lichtenstock Cemetery, Belgium. His personal effects will be sent to you in due course by the military authorities. I deeply sympathize with you and pray that God of all consolation and comfort may strengthen you and sustain you in your sore bereavement. Yours sincerely, A.H. Dunoon, Chaplain. Dear Edith, as I told you, if I got any more word, I would let you know. So Nelson copied it off for me. I was glad to get this letter. It was very nice of the chaplain to send it. You will see by it, poor Ed did not suffer long, but we will never blank what we blank. He came blank. And he never complained in any of his letters. I've got 2 branch cards last week, one for me and one for Roy. One was dated November 5th, and they were both posted on November 8th, on the 8th of November, so poor boy wrote as long as he could. Well, dear Edith, I have thought quite a bit about you since you were out, and I'm sure if poor Ed have known how badly you felt, he would have known you thought quite a bit of him. Yes, indeed, I wish he had met you sooner, but it cannot be helped now. But as you were his friend, I hope you will be mine, and Edith, if I can ever do anything for you or help you in any way, would only be pleased to do so. How are you feeling this time? Is your shoulders better, and you do like it any better where you are now? Oh, say Edith, I forgot to ask you that night you were out. Will you please thank Edna and many of the girls that wrote to Ed or sent him it blank? It was so nice of them to remember him. I'm sure he appreciated it very much. Roy will be home the day before Christmas. He is up and around again. Mrs. Watson was down to see Roy last week. She says he feels bad about Ed. He says it is there no one in Oakdale will slip up and take Ed's place. How is your mother? Phone or write sometimes and come out when you can. I will say good night with love and best wishes from M. Howe. Albert Joseph Obey, proud to serve. Father of 2 area residents, World War II veteran, bears decades-long history of dedication. And pictured above left, Albert Obey in 1958 when he served with the Canadian Army on behalf of the United Nations as military police. Pictured white, one of the photographed moments from Obey's service. The date it was taken is unknown. He is the man seen on the far right in the photo. And here, a scene from the Charles de Gaulle motorcade, which Obey assisted in. Albert Obey, pictured in 1994, displaying some of the medals he received for World War II services. And a scene from the memorial service held at Cossé-sur-Mer, France, in front of Sherman Tank Bowl display. And Obey standing beside a memorial sign for Juno Beach during his return visit to France for the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And on the bottom here, Albert Obey, center, pictured with the Canadian Provost Corps. The date and location were not available. The late Albert Joseph Obey was born in Dansville, Quebec on December 20th, 1919. Obey is the father of Pamela Gomez of Gladstone and Roderick Obey of Arden. While Albert Obey did not reside in Manitoba, Pamela Gomez and Roderick Obey have resided in the area since late 2018 and 2019, respectively. While the details of his service were limited, it is known that Albert Obey served for 2 tours of duty. Additionally, his dedication extended even after his retirement from the Army. He was a very proud soldier, said Gomez. He was very proud to serve his country. Obey first responded to the call of duty during World War II. After enlisting via Quebec on June 4, 1940, he was posted with the No. 4 Canadian Provost Corps and was member 175. He served in Canada, the United Kingdom, and the continental Europe, including Normandy and Juno Beach. For his service, Obey was awarded the 1939-1945 Star, France and Germany Star, Defense Medal, Canadian Volunteer Service Medal, and Clasp and War Medal 1939 to 1945. The official date of Obey's discharge from active duty for World War II was March 21, 1947, at which time he was 27 years of age and bearing the rank of sergeant. The details available for his second tour of duty state that Obey's enlistment with the Canadian Army took place at Montreal, Quebec on October 15, 1948. During active duty, he served in Canada, Europe, and the Middle East. The particular conflict this was for was not stated. However, it has been determined that it was specifically a peacekeeping mission, part of which was served on behalf of the United Nations as military police in the Gaza Strip 1958 to 1959. The date of Aubé's second honorable discharge was November 19, 1960. Aubé is listed as a staff sergeant at the time of his discharge. He received the Canadian Forces Decoration and the United Nations Emergency Force Medal. After his retirement from the Canadian Army, Gomez noted that Aubé remained involved with one of Canada's watchdog groups, which provides security at certain events. This was the IPA, International Police Association, which he had formally signed on with on June 1, 1979. He was with Region 9, number 1502, and served on the executive board in the 1990s. He was also invited to France twice, once for the 45th anniversary of D-Day and selected again for the 50th anniversary by the Government of Canada on behalf of the province of British Columbia, said Gomez. Aubé's visit to France for the 50th anniversary saw him revisit locations such as Juno Beach and Normandy. The reception was very pleasant, and as stated by Aubé in 1994, in the 1994 Burnaby Now article, unbelievable. Part of this warm welcome was exhibited by youths wearing white shirts with red maple leaves, all wanting autographs from those in attendance. During the 50th anniversary memorial services at the IPA, states that Aubé had the special honor of unveiling the Canadian Provost Course plaque on the Sherman tank Bold. The Bold is on display at Courcelles-sur-Mer, France, to commemorate the D-Day landings at Normandy. Duplex Drive Shermans, such as the Bold, were used by the 1st Canadian Hussars at Normandy Beach. Hussars? Yeah. The 50th anniversary was also allowed him to see the country in its full beauty, as it was intended to be, a very stark contrast to his first visit 5 decades prior. When Aubé was in France with the Canadian Army back then, it was a land heavily bearing the wounds of war. In the 1994 Burnaby Now interview, Aubé said it was in shambles, especially the city of Caen. It was in ashes when we rolled through. In the article, Aubé went on to describe the memory of that initial arrival. I remember we were 3 miles outside Caen. We saw about 600 bombers come over our heads. They just splashed the area and the Germans with bombs, said Aubé. It was unbelievable. By the time we got there, the dust was thick and it was burning to the ground. All the other cities I saw were in flames too. He had also shared that he and his unit were very fortunate when they arrived at Juno Beach on June 6, 1944. The account given in Burnaby Now noted that the Germans had been in complete disarray. His unit was able to gain control of their section of the beach and clear it of mines without casualties. Supplemental IPA records highlight another of the significant memory, the escort parade, or motorcade, for General Charles de Gaulle's return to Paris in June 14, 1944. Among those escorting de Gaulle was Sergeant Aubé. Much later in his life, Aubé had the chance to unexpectedly reunite with one of his comrades. While he was at the hospital in Burnaby, BC, it turned out that the fellow next to him was one Aubé knew from his years of service. Oh, they got up into trouble, Gomez laughed. They were having so much fun together reminiscing that it got them in trouble with the nurses. It was quite incredible. Aubé passed away at age 85 on April 25, 2005 in Burnaby, British Columbia. A brief history of World War II aircraft mechanic Cecil Jury. And the late Cecil R. Jury of Minnedosa, he served as an instrument mechanic, LAC, in World War II. And at the bottom, the photo from aircraft of the Royal Canadian Air Force, a centennial history, 1924 to 2024, shows an example of a Mosquito aircraft while undergoing maintenance. Mosquitoes are one of the many crafts Cecil Jury worked on. Note, the following juries have been compiled from those provided by the Royal Canadian Legion Manitoba and Northwestern Ontario Command's Military Service Book, Volume 16. The late Cecil Ronald Jury was a veteran of World War II and a resident of Minnedosa. Jury farmed with his father there until April of 1943. At that time, at 18 years old, he then went into Winnipeg and joined up with the Royal Canadian Air Force. According to the information provided, Jury was then posted manning pool in Brandon. He was with the air crew, but flunked the physical. Not discouraged, the Jury then chose the instruments mechanic trade. Jury received 2 days of basic training, and then was called off the parade square and called to the orderly room. At that time, he received a new posting to No. 2 Manning Depot in Toronto. While taking courses at the TTS, Jury and his fellows resided in a house. He was at Toronto's TTS for 2 months, then posted to another TTS at St. Thomas. Note, according to Veteran Affairs Canada, TTS can either stand for Technical Training Schools or Trades Training Schools. Nippon Banner and Press presumes it is signifying Trades Training Schools in this context. Spitfires and more. Jury spent 4 months in training at St. Thomas, with meals mostly consisting of fish and eggs. After the conclusion of his training there, Jury graduated as an instrument mechanic, LAC. He was then posted to the No. 3 Repair Depot in Vancouver, BC. The No. 3 Repair Depot was RCAF headquarters, repair depot for all of British Columbia. It is reported that posters were made from there for amphibious aircraft and seaplanes. And in an account provided with Military Service Book Volume 16, Jury stated, "That's the only place I've ever seen a Stannard aircraft. They also had Canso flying boats." This depot was also right across from Western Air Command, which meant frequent inspections. In association with the No. 3 Repair Depot, Jury's first posting was to Sea Island. Sea Island is noted to have been the Vancouver airport, but also a Royal Canadian Air Force station. After concluding his service there, he was sent to Pat Bay, Victoria. Pat Bay was both a seaplane and a ground base. While stationed there, Jury worked on aircraft such as Spitfires, Mosquitoes, Dakota DC-3s, Blenheims, and Hurricanes. Next was his posting to Port Hardy, which appears to have lasted for about 5 months. At this time, the war was dying down in Europe, and he was tasked with removing instruments from aircraft for storage. After returning to the No. 3 Repair Depot, Jury volunteered to serve in the Pacific. This brought him to train at Jericho Beach, as well as other places which were not listed by name. Postings to the Pacific were later cancelled, and Jury received a new posting to Boundary Bay. After a short period of time there, he went on to Abbotsford. While there, Jury flew 4-engine planes known as Liberators. Jury was at Abbotsford when Victory in Europe Day arrived, May 6, 1945. He and his fellows were told that they could still join the Army if they received their discharge. As such, Jury applied and received his discharge on July 12, 1945 at Vancouver. After spending a 2-week leave in California, Jury returned to join the Army, but the war ended. For his service, Jury was recognized with the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal, War Medal 1939 to 1945, and Canadian Centennial Medal 1967. For 1945's fall season, Jury returned home to Minnedosa to help with harvest. His civilian life thereafter led him to study agriculture at the University of Manitoba. After receiving his diploma, he farmed in the summers and, for a couple of winters, spent time traveling across the United States. Later, he worked at a sawmill in Williams Lake, BC for another winter up until Christmas. Then, from New Year's to the end of March, he was employed on the Fraser River on a government dredge. Jury returned once again to Minnedosa, deciding to settle and farm full-time. Jury married Leona Hutton of Bethany in 1949. Together, the pair raised 2 sons while farming what was noted to be the former Bob Moffat farm. Jury and his family were involved with the United Church, and with Jury himself serving on the board for a time. Additionally, Jury also served on town council, the hospital board during the planning stages of the Minnedosa Personal Care Home, and was incredibly involved with the Royal Canadian Legion. Jury is reported to have served as secretary for the Manitoba Branch 138 for several years. He also stepped into the role of president, zone commander, district secretary, and was on the Legion Gardens Committee when it was built. Jury's involvement with a lifetime membership spanning 75 years. He received a commemorative pin recognizing his 75 years of dedication ahead of his passing on December 30th, 2019. Jury and his wife, who passed on July 4th, 2014, both received burial service at Boyd Cemetery, located in Bethany. And pictured here is Lance Corporal Josephine Pazwisti of the Canadian Women's Army Corps, Military Division No. 10. Her regiment is marked as unknown. Josephine was born on June 10, 1922, to parents Russell William and Mary Natkowski Pazwisti of Eden. Later, in June of 1942, she enlisted with the Canadian Women's Army Corps and served in the Records Department at District Head Office in Winnipeg. Prior to joining the Army, she was employed at the Nippon General Hospital. Josephine had 2 brothers, Peter and Anthony, who also served during World War II, in Italy during World War II. And we have Peace Day in Minnedosa. As of November 11th, 2025, this photo will be 107 years old. The photo depicts people gathered on the streets and sidewalks of Minnedosa to celebrate the end of World War II. World War I on Peace Day, November 11th, 1918. Some information relevant to the 1918 armistice. According to the Historical Society of Ottawa, HSO, the WW1 armistice was signed at 5 a.m. Paris time on November 11th, 1918. It should be noted as well, however, that it was to take effect 6 hours after the armistice was signed. The HSO states that fighting continued until 11 a.m. that day, with many losing their lives in battle during those hours. And for Remembrance Day in 2025, the following days are available for Remembrance Day service details for the region. These details are current as of October 27th, so please watch for local updates. Neepawa services. Services for Neepawa will be held on November 11th at the Yellowhead Center. The ceremony will begin at 10:45 a.m. Minnedosa services. There will be a Remembrance Day service at the Minnedosa Community Conference Center located at 63 Main Street North. It will be held November 11th at 10:45 a.m. Gladstone services. Gladstone Legion number 110 will be holding a Remembrance Day service at the Co-op Hall, formerly Stride Hall, on November 11th. The service will begin at 10:15 a.m. Plumas services. Remembrance Day services will be hosted at Plumas Community Hall on November 11th. The ceremony will begin at 10:45 with a lunch to follow. McCreary services. McCreary Legion Branch number 173 will be holding a Remembrance Day service in the Legion on November 11th. The memorial service will begin at 10:45 a.m. Erickson services. Erickson Legion Branch number 143 will hold Remembrance Day services on November 11th at the Erickson Hall, 31st Street Southwest in Erickson at 10:45 a.m. A service will also be hosted at the Clan Williams Cenotaph at 1:30 p.m. Kelwood services. All are welcome to attend services for Remembrance Day at Kelwood. Those wishing to attend are asked to gather at the Legion for 10:45 a.m. Service will commence at 11 a.m. Lunch will follow after service. Carberry services. Carberry Legion Branch 153's Remembrance Day service will be held on November 11th in the Carberry Community Hall. People need to be seated by 10:45 and the service will begin at 10:55. After the service has concluded, a luncheon and karaoke will be hosted at Royal Canadian Legion Branch 153, located at 25 Main Street in Carberry. Brandon services. Remembrance Day services will be hosted within the Assiniboine Credit Union Place, located at number 1, 1175 18th Street on November 11th at 10:45. All are encouraged to attend a service in your community, if possible, or to dedicate time to reflection and remembrance on November 11th. And that concludes the reading of the Neepawa Banner and Press for Friday, November 7th, 2025. Thanks for watching us.